are traveling and on their way in. What we're trying to do here at Kiwanis or Kingston is get our meeting started early on time, or sorry, not early, on time. So as close to 7 as possible, so you can spread the word so that we can have more time for questions and answers or fellowship following the meeting.
Yeah.
All right? Okay. Thank you again, Eurydice. Glad to have you here. Okay. Good night. Good night. I hear a voice, but I'm not sure who it is. Please identify yourself.
Yes, PP Robert from Kiwanis Club of West St. Andrew. I'm currently alone at meeting. I know the members of West St. Andrew will come on later, but
Right.
I'm looking forward to hearing about the water situation. Time is
Yeah.
hot, and from time to time, I have no water in the pipe, so I'm really going to listen to hear whatever is going on with the water situation. So I'm here. Even though
Yeah.
I love sports, me and
Yes.
Stu talk a lot. I have to stem that and learn to come to other meetings.
Ah, we're glad for your presence. But yeah, you have to round yourself, you know. Sports, although exciting, is only one facet of life. So by learning about our water resources and other things, you never know.
Yeah, man. Okay.
All right. Glad to have you here again, Robert.
Yeah, man.
So we're
Good evening. Good evening.
good evening.
Everyone. This is
Jenny.
Yanis, yes, from the
Good to see
Kiwanis
you.
Club of Stony Hill. And it's a
Yeah.
pleasure to be here with you this evening. And
Yeah.
if I checked, and I think there are 5 of us so far from the Kiwanis Club of Stony
Very
Hill.
good.
Yes, so we have to hear about the water situation. So we're glad to be here and looking forward to an interesting meeting.
Okay. Thank you, DP Yanis. The problem is not unique to Stony Hill. It's all over Jamaica. And I think what we'll be interested in hearing is Jamaica is a land of wood and water, but I think the challenge that we have is not a lack of water, it's a lack of distribution to our population centers. So it's not like we live in the Sahara Desert and there's no water. We see Dunn's River and we see all these major waterways that we have throughout Jamaica, but we haven't been able to harness that in an efficient way, and it becomes even more important as we go into the summer and into these hot times ahead of us. So it'll be an interesting meeting later on. We look forward to Mr. Clarke's presentation and your participation also. So welcome again to UDP Yanis and the rest of the members of Stony Hill.
Thank you.
Okay, still an open invitation to any Kiwanians who are joining us. I am in Division 23 Central. I'm now going to move, if there's nobody else, not unmuted, to Division 24. Do we have any Kiwanian clubs from Division 24? Division 25?
Good evening, PE Stephen,
Good
distinguished
evening.
Kiwanians and guests. This is Director Designate Crystal Heaven. Currently tonight is only me alone due to the fact that I'm on my way to a joint meeting with the Kiwanis Club of Montego Freeport because convention gonna be on Thursday, so we won't be having a meeting. So it's me alone. Looking forward to a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Crystal. Sorry, Director Designate Crystal. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
That's fine. I'm still chairman. Thank you.
And I know that we're in the last minutes of planning for the district convention. So everybody who is going, I'm sure is looking forward to that. Lots of learning about Kiwanis International, about charitable projects and how we can help the children of our country. So those of you who are able to participate, please do. It's going to be a worthwhile venture. So we were in Montego Bay, Division 25, and as last call for any guests and visitors. If not, I'll just do it. So we do have Kiwanis Club of Sunshine City, Central Surrey Online, West St. Andrew, Stony Hill, and Montego Bay. If I forgot anybody, now is your chance. I think I see New Kingston. Would you like to introduce your delegation before I close off? Is New Kingston with us? The person must be shy. But we know that Kiwanis Club of New Kingston is always supportive of our efforts, and we welcome them nonetheless. President Newton, that concludes the welcome and introduction, and I pass the microphone back to you to continue the meeting.
Thank you, P. Stephen.
Okay.
And at our guest speaker, Mr. Clarke, is into water management.
Yes, your signal is breaking up, President.
Not a rainmaker, so he's unable to do a dance and bring rain. Absences. I have not received any apologies. Have you received any, DLG Willie?
No, not to my knowledge.
Oh, there is one, sorry, DLG Willie, from distinguished President Marcel Boyce. He's traveling.
Oh, that's correct. He's traveling to Montego Bay. Correct.
That's correct. So he sends his apologies.
Okay, thank you. No,
But
noted.
that's all from my side.
Okay, and in order to, okay, no, well, fortunately for us, P. Stephen, it's not all from your side because you're back again with recognition of birthdays and anniversaries.
Yes, yes,
Not far off.
Yes, and I scoured our register to see if we had any Kiwanians or their spouses who have birthdays or anniversaries. And for this week, that is May 17th. Is that right? May 14th to the 21st. I'm not picking up any Kiwanians who celebrating a birthday. So I would extend an open invitation if there are any members who are online now who are celebrating a birthday and would like to share that occasion with us. If not, I wish for everybody a positive and productive week, and God's blessing to you all, and to Jamaica. So that's it from me, President Newton. No birthdays or anniversaries, and so we can continue with our Kiwanis or regular Kiwanis activities.
Thank you. I guess our celebration in Montego Bay this week will be enough. Will be enough of a celebration.
Indeed.
All right, ACLG Desmond standing by and ready of you online who are not familiar with our procedure. Part of what we do at the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is each week we give you a little information about what if you're a member, you will understand a little more about the organization of which you're a part. If you are not a member, then you will gain some information that might just influence you to join us. So LG Desmond, over to you, sir. Oh, your microphone is muted, LG. You're muted. Still muted.
Thank
you.
You
go. There you
Can
go,
you
sir.
Me?
Can hear you loud
right.
and clear.
Thank you, President Newton. Good evening, everyone, fellow Kiwanians, SLP members, prospects, guests. Kiwanis education received in the role of the Kiwanis Committee Chairman. The chairman is one of the leaders of the club, and she or he is appointed by the club president. She or he plays a very important role in connecting new and seasoned members to the goals, objectives, and the overall activities of the club. Under his or her guidance, the committee works as a team to engage members, develop strategies, and perform the task for the achievement of the club's goals. Additionally, she or he communicates the planned and actual activities of the club to provide information to the club's membership, develop leaders, and have fun. The duties, however, are subject to the existence of the standing committees, for example, fundraising committee, membership growth and retention, interclub, and club meetings. That's it for Kiwanis Education President. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, LG Desmond. And I see that our yes,
I don't know if it is from
Go.
your side or my side, but you're breaking up
Mr.
bad.
Clarke. Okay, if you're hearing me, I think it's from my side because I keep seeing internet unstable flashing. But if you're hearing me, we are at that point now where we need to introduce to you this evening the star of our show. And so we're calling upon Chairman Avian Shaw to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Peter Clarke of the Water Resources Authority. Chairman Avian?
President Newton?
Yes, DP.
I've been looking at it and I haven't seen his name.
Okay.
I will do the introduction, but I'm looking through and unless he has signed on another name or like a phone name or something, but I'm not seeing his name.
Well, the fact that he hasn't responded since you started this conversation means he's probably not on. So we would be really grateful, DP Stewart.
6:45, sir.
Sorry?
I've been on since 6:45.
Oh, no.
I don't mean the guest. I mean the person who is gonna introduce you. Okay.
Oh, okay. So DP Stewart, we would be honored if you could introduce our guest for us.
Sure. Okay, fellow Kiwanians and guests, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon. He is Mr. Peter Clarke. He has been employed for the past 39 years within the construction sector of Jamaica, specifically in the areas of water supply and water resources management. He started his career in 1984 at Carib Engineering Corporation Limited as an engineering surveyor, working on the Yalas Pipeline project. Subsequently, over a 22-year period as project manager on numerous water supply projects across Jamaica, he has been successfully responsible for the coordination of all aspects of work necessary for the construction of scores of water supply projects. Thereafter, the next 10 years spent at the Rural Water Supply Limited, culminating as engineering manager, saw his involvement in the design project financing, project financing, project implementation, and construction of water supply projects, again, for scores of towns and districts island-wide. In response to the WRA's succession plan, Mr. Clarke joined the team at the Water Resources Authority in the capacity of Deputy Managing Director in 2016. As the Managing Director since 2019, he is directly responsible for leading the strategic aspects and implementing the plans and programs that support the corporate policy of the WRA. Over the years, Peter has received extensive training in water and environmental management in the UK, waterworks engineering in Japan, construction engineering and management in Jamaica, project management in the UK, natural resource management in Jamaica, and water sustainability and climate in the USA. He's registered with the Professional Engineers Registration Board as an environmental engineer and with the International Project Management Association as a certified project management associate. He's also a member of the St. Andrew Justices of the Peace Association. His interests are gardening, swimming, motorsports, sailing, astronomy, cycling, and hiking. A well-rounded person in terms of his interests. So, fellow Kiwanians and guests, please join me, open your mic and remember to close it back. And give a hearty welcome to Mr. Peter Clarke. Over to you, Mr. Clarke.
Oh, you're still muted, Mr. Clarke.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to the Kiwanis Club of Kingston for inviting me to address you this evening. I will get straight into it because you may have questions at the end. If you could allow me to share screen, that would be great. What you could do is you could go to the participants, and when you bring up the list of participants.
No, I've just made you a co-host. That's all right. I made you a co-host,
Right.
so you can share screen.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen now.
Yes, we are.
Actually, I chose the topic. I know that I realized that you had one on your flyer after when I actually logged on this evening. But I chose this topic, both ends of the water resources spectrum, too little and too much. Yes, I will tell you about the Water Resources Authority, and we'll get into, especially at this time, the problem of too little. And I think for most Jamaicans, that is a perennial problem. And very rarely we have, not very rarely, but there are times when we have the situation of too much water. And I think a lot of us would probably welcome in some good strong rains now. For sure, the Water Resources Authority, we do welcome the storm events in the sense that those are the rains that really replenish our water resources. All the water we have in Jamaica comes from rainwater. Think of all the rivers that you know in Jamaica: Rio Grande, Rio Cobre, Rio Minnow, Great River, Cabarito River, Black River. All of these rivers, and they're flowing almost continuously. And the fact is that all of that is rainfall. All of that is rain that fell over a period and soaked into the ground, and then is gradually soaking back out of the ground to feed these rivers. So that tells you, when you consider all of that water that's flowing to the sea every day, and of course we are using some for all kinds of purposes, it tells you how much rain actually falls. So in water management, and I'm going to speak, Water Resources Authority deals with water management, not water delivery, not water billing or anything like that. So in water management, no, really, it's government and others. And the government is the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development that largely are responsible for a lot of the projects that bring you water from the government entity, let us say, the National Water Commission or Rural Water Supply or JSIP. But together we all strategize and evaluate and mitigate and everything. But the responsibility for that planning lies mainly and largely with the Water Resources Authority, which operates under the Water Resources Act of 1995. And that act compels the Water Resources Authority to regulate water, to allocate water, to conserve water, and to manage water. So as an institution, what it means is that we do licensing and regulation. So we give licenses for people who want to abstract water, and you may have questions about that later. We give licenses about permits to people who want to drill wells for water. We do resource monitoring and data collection, and I'll give you some of that. We do planning and investigation because we have to respond to the development process out of NEPA. Of course, environmental quality and assurance. So when you have the spills, those are a problem. Water resource engineering. So when there's flooding and so on, we're in that. And of course, we have our support services. So this vested power has given us the the mandate to produce certain things and to do certain, commit certain actions. One of the major things is the preparation of a national water resources master plan, and we have to update that plan occasionally. Of course, we do licensing and we monitor abstraction and use of water. We can declare emergency areas and aquifer protection zones. We deal with the assessment of well drilling operations to determine if the applicant's need can be fulfilled. We calculate the safety from aquifers and so on. So all of that is there. All of what we do, we have to do just like any other institution or agency or authority or any even developer that basically has a vested interest in sustainable development. It means that we have particular things that we pay attention to. So we pay attention to surface water monitoring, to groundwater monitoring, to mapping and to inventory. So for inventory, we'll inventorize waste discharge. For mapping, we'll produce river flood paths. We'll produce a cemetery site suitability map. Surface water monitoring, we'll monitor for pollution, for stream flow and volume. For groundwater, we will monitor it for raw water quality and quantity. But then all of this, there's always the management challenge, in that everybody needs water. Everybody wants water. And some people who have access to water do not realize that you have to measure, and you have to measure how you abstract water. So if you over abstract groundwater, it can deplete the aquifer. So that's in terms of volume. You can also interfere with somebody else who's also abstracting from the same aquifer. Because if you put in a well and your well goes down to 50 feet and your pump is, let us say, a 60 horsepower pump, and then somebody puts in a well and their well goes down to 80 feet and they put in a 100 horsepower pump, they may well draw down that groundwater level, that it goes below your 60 feet where you were accessing the water, and then you basically don't get any water. So all of that is a part of what we have to monitor. We have to monitor how wells can interfere with each other and restrict abstraction in such a manner, because the major thing is that you over pump an aquifer, you can actually pull seawater into the aquifer. And then that's a big problem. It's called saline upconing or saline upconing. And then it's very difficult to get an aquifer regenerated back to fresh after it becomes saline. For the surface water situation, people may want to abstract water and not recognize downstream ecology losses. And I speak to the matter of maintaining an environmental flow, or downstream economy losses, because there's somebody else downstream who you've interfered with. So in terms of this downstream ecological loss, whenever we decide or determine how much can be removed from a river or a stream or spring, it is always within the context that there must be an environmental flow, because you have to meet an economic/environmental demand. You have to maintain that, because at the end of the day, wildlife has to, fish and birds and everything, depending on the stream, they still have to live. You have public health considerations, because people may be needing the water for sanitation further downstream. People may be using it for their own business purposes. And of course, in our attempt at climate change resilience, we have to consider and maintain an environmental flow. And the challenges, of course, are within that. The climate change itself will present a challenge. If you have over-allocation, that can present a challenge. And of course, pollution can present a challenge. And we've known of instances of basically, for sure, the last two bullet points and so on. The situation is that, yes, Jamaica does have a lot of groundwater. It has, so when I mentioned those rivers earlier, and I spoke about, Rio Cobra and Rio Grande and Great River and all of them, all right, when you consider all of the water, if you add up all that water flowing into the sea, flowing through these rivers per year, there is 5 times more water underground available for the same year than all that flows through all those rivers. So what it means is that the potential for tapping into groundwater to meet your needs, to successfully meet your needs is real. So yes, Jamaica is the land of wood and water, as I think it was your president-elect that says, or Mr. Greg said. However, there are instances where the groundwater is severely polluted. So in some cases, if you can see that whole Clarendon area and St. Catherine area on the south in yellow, that's basically seawater that has been pulled into a lot of the wells there. And that was the problem that came into being why in 1995, the act was passed to put the Water Resources Authority in place just to basically put a curb this action. Because the fact is that before that, people could pump as they wish. And you just, put in a pump, and if you found that you need more water, you put in a bigger pump, and you didn't know the science of what it was happening on the ground. And of course, you have the situation of bauxite waste, especially the mud lakes and so on. So there are issues. So one of the things that we do, for instance, and this is just a water quality map, an aquifer quality map. So we've divided up the country, and I'll show you we divided it up, and we monitor, measure, and provide information to others on what's happening with our groundwater, whether the situation of chlorides, which indicates the salinity, nitrates, which would come from like absorption pits or that sort of thing, sodium, again, salinity, sulfates, total dissolved solids, all of these things. So we monitor. So we provide these maps for the entire country for who would really need it. And there are people who require it. So our role really then is that we are integral in development decisions, and we're integral in, so for instance, mining decisions. So the whole matter of the cockpit country and the matter of where the boundaries would be, for instance, we were quite instrumental in determining what must be the final boundary, where whatever else everybody is saying, wherever they say their boundaries are, we looked at the geomorphology and we said that whatever else you call a boundary, we know for sure that you shouldn't be coming inside of this area. And, that was the boundary that we stuck to. So we were a part of the whole discussion about the cockpit country boundary. As I said before, for instance, in terms of development, we produce cemetery site location maps, which are useful to municipal corporations, because even right now, the Buff Bay Cemetery is full and needs to be expanded. The Anata Bay Cemetery is almost full. The municipal cemetery in Clarendon is full. Napen Cemetery downtown is full. So it's like it is instrumental that somebody has done the monitoring and done the measurement to say, well, all right, well, this is where you can or cannot go. As I've mentioned before, we have the matter of aquifer protection zone. So we've declared, for instance, an aquifer protection zone over in the Portmore area. It's not a no-build zone, but it is a care build zone. So it means that there are particular requirements. There are particular monitoring requirements. It requires a multi-sectoral approach. And this was, the idea is you want a win-win for all. And this was one of the major aquifer protection zone is right out there in Portmore. And you can see that blue line. So this thick blue line is an aquifer protection zone. Now within this is the Bernard Lodge development, all right? So this was sugarcane and it is now being developed into housing and so on. So what it means is that because it's an aquifer protection zone, there are particular requirements. They have to put in retention ponds. And we see these retention ponds in other places. For those of you who travel to South Florida, for instance, you see all of these lakes and so on. All of those lakes, a lot of those lakes are actually man-made in those communities. Those in the small communities, and let us call it field. Those lakes are man-made because you have to, they put them there so that they can capture flood water, and then instead of allowing the flood water to run down roads and just go to waste, it stays there so that it can soak back into the aquifer. So that is it. So we divided Jamaica into 10 hydrologic basins. All right, these are not parish boundaries, no. These are hydrologic basins, and the boundaries are just basically delineating what we've done is we've chosen them a major water feature within each one, basically. Well, for Blue Mountain North, there are so many that we just call it Blue Mountain North, and the same thing for Blue Mountain South. So Kingston, I mean, the major hydrologic feature is the Hope River and the Sandy Gully. So that is we've divided it up so that we can manage it and monitor it better. You drive around Jamaica and you see these stations, and they're different kinds. So you may see one like this. For instance, this is on the Plantain Garden River at the bridge out by Golden Grove in St. Thomas. So this one operates its radar. So it sends a signal down, it receives the signal comes to the box, and it comes to the office over the cellular phone system, and we can know what the river level is doing. We have it in Bog Walk. We have these are the old time ones. These here, this metal corrugated metal tube or the concrete tower. The problem with these is that when the river carries silt, so this has a float inside, and as the river rises and falls, the float rises and falls, and then you have the measuring device inside. But when it carries silt, then the silt can back up inside there. And then when the water level has fallen, but because the silt is still high in there and the float is sitting on the silt, it can give false readings. So we're moving away from these. Of course, we're out there, as I said, there's times of too much. So we're also out there in times of flood, doing high flow measurements and so on. So when these flood events are coming, my team have to mobilize. So just like our JPS have to mobilize, and some of the others are important, but we also have to mobilize during these flood events. For instance, you're looking at a picture of the Rear Cobra, the Bogwart Gorge. And we know that we've lost life and property in Bogwart Gorge in the past. So I've noticed that in the last few years, you've had no incidents really of anything, and we keep on knocking wood for that. But we also give ourselves a pat on the back for that, because we have a system of monitoring the rainfall in the further parts of the watershed. And then now, based on that, we can do the projections and determine what is going to happen. And we are the ones who trigger for the gates to be closed. So we're not waiting on somebody to see the river rising and to say that the gate needs to be closed. And even if you see the river rising, it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be closed, because we would know what's happening with the rain, and if it is, if it's tapering off and the river won't be getting any higher and so on. We have the models that we run for this, and the information comes in real time. So having coming in real time, we can then, make a decision and send to admin, who sends to the National Works Agency, who sends to the police, and the gates are closed. So we monitor across the island those stations, as I told you. So for surface water, we have surface water monitoring stations all over on many rivers and streams. And for groundwater, it's the same thing. Sorry, I went the other way. And for groundwater, it's the same thing. Now, we collect data, as I said, and this data is what helps us to make decisions. So the matter of, for instance, we're looking at the Rio Grande at Alligator Church Bridge. At Alligator Church Bridge in the Rio Grande Valley. What we know is that the Rio Grande, 90% of the time, gives you no less than 35.3 million gallons per day. In January of this year, it was giving 134.6 million gallons per day. But by February of this year, it fell to 50.5, roughly a third, or a little bit less than a third. So you can see that we are going, and these numbers give you the significance of the drought that we're going through. And these numbers are important to people who, like the Water Commission, who move water around and who are distributing water. It gives them an idea of what they need to project for with their own, for their own delivery. You can see what it is for February 2023. So for same time this year, same time last year, at this time last year, the Rio Grande was down to 29.1 million gallons per day. So, this all lets you corroborate how intense that drought last year was. The year before, it was 201. So you realize that 2022 was a very wet year. Similar, and the numbers are pretty. This is across the island, way over at the Roaring River in Petersfield. Same thing. January 2024, it was 39.7. And by February, it fell to 24.3. But it's still above the reliable yield of 23.6. So it tells you that these rivers, we can tap more into them. That is you may have heard, for instance, that Negril is having a problem. And the fact is that, you know, there are a number of ways and a number of there are opportunities for solving the Negril problem. It may not be one single source that can or will do it, but for sure, what it does is it gives the planners something to think about now when we tell them that in the worst drought last year, 2023, the Roaring River barely fell below its reliable yield. So in 2023, it was given 23.3 million gallons per day, and its reliable yield was 23.6, which means that it is a reliable river. So it is one of the rivers that we've already recommended that they'll have to look to deal with the situation for Negril. So we collect the data. So it means that we know, can determine on what we know, and it puts us in a position to be able to say something. And one of the things that we can say, for instance, is how the rivers are responding on a monthly basis. So we prepare these bulletins, which we send out to, you know, those who definitely need them. And if you can see, for instance, that on the east, the rivers have been either normal or near or above normal in December of 2023. All right, the river here went to a new high. 5 is the Hope River near Garden Town. It went to a new high. And this is for the month we're talking, because we're comparing this when we say it's a normal for the month. So in other words, it went to a new high for December compared to any other December that we've been measuring. While, for instance, you know, you can see where rivers are below normal, for instance. So the Fish River in Logwood, this was much below normal. Number 24 here is the Fish River at Logwood, which supplies Negril with water. So that was a major problem right there. All right, and then for January, the Fish River is still low, so Negril still has a problem. And you can also see that the Great River at least is a new low. So it does corroborate that there has been much less rainfall in the west at this time than normal. And then we produce the bulletins, as I say, and you know, people are interested. There are some people that are interested in reading these bulletins. We're also gathering data from the Met Service of Jamaica, so we use that for runoff estimation analysis in terms of flood analysis, flood forecasting, all of these things. Critically, in the Caribbean, there is a group in the Caribbean that produces meteorological data. It's called CARICOF, Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum. And we depend heavily on their information that they produce on a quarterly basis, and also from the map on the right, from the Met Service. So, you know, we depend on all of this because it also helps us when we are running our models to know, you know, what the current situation is. Everybody knows by now that last year, 2023, was the hottest year on record, basically almost anywhere in the world you were. And September last year was the hottest month ever on record. Ever. Since we've been recording, it was a new low, new high. All right, so it is getting hotter. And we know that. You've heard about, you know, about heat waves, and you've heard about, you know, heat for this week and all of that sort of thing. Myself, that website that gives you that information and said it was going to be 5 degrees hotter, it's not one that I trust personally. I find them very alarmist. Whenever there's a hurricane coming, they pick whichever model is going to run it through Jamaica. That's the one they pick, and always, you know, spend a lot of time talking about, and, you know, 90% of the time they're wrong. I noticed that the Met Service have come out today to say, yes, it may be a little bit warmer, but not like 5 degrees would be like really sweltering, and we'll be probably having people with heat stroke. But that doesn't mean that this is not getting hotter, generally speaking. This is May 7th, which is last week on the right. All right. Global records were smashed in Europe on May 7th. We know that 2023 was hot. Mexico, we know the situation that they were having last year with the heat. Everybody turned on ACs, and every single AC was probably on in Mexico. And as a result of that, the grid just couldn't handle it. And congruently, just like how the temperatures are rising, the rainfall is also getting less. It's generally speaking, it's getting less. So when you look on the climatology, that black line is the average from 1901 to 2019, the dotted line, okay? And the green line is the most current situation, most current period, 30-year mean of 1990 to 2019. So you can see that our mean rainfall totals have, generally speaking, they've fallen off. And what especially has fallen off is the rainfall from our peak when we expect the most rain. It is those times that it has fallen off. So September, October, November, you can see that there's a drastic drop. Not so much of a drop in July, for instance. And coupled with that is sea level rise. And most people don't know why sea level rises. You know, we hear about sea level rise, but it's not so much that glaciers are melting. It's not so much that polar ice caps are melting. Yes, they are melting. But when you consider the magnitude of water that's in the sea, you know, the glaciers are not that the loss of a glacier is very significant in and of itself, but the contribution to sea level rise is not that much. What makes sea level rise is just common physics. If you boil water, it expands. If you heat water, it expands. So as the planet gets warmer, then that water near the surface is going to expand. Now it can't expand down because there's already water below it and the bottom seabed below that. So it can only expand up. And that is simply why sea level rises. Now, the other thing that really exacerbates that is that as it gets hotter, as temperatures rise, that band of water. So let us say the sun can only heat 40 feet of water. And then after that, you basically find cool water. Temperatures rise, it's going to start heating a band that's going to increase to 41 feet, and to 42 feet, and to 50 feet or whatever. And then what that means is that you will also have that exponential rise. Well, it's not exponential. You'll have that, it may be exponential. I'm not determined whether it's exponential or it's linear, but you will have a rise, an increase of the rate of rise as it also gets hotter. So sea level is rising without a doubt. So as I said, now we have produced this water resources master plan. So we have to assess water demand, we have to assess water availability, all right, and then we have to incorporate climate change parameters. So working with the climate studies group out of UWI, we have looked at we've developed an event scenario to 2080, an event horizon to 2080. And we recognize that, you know, things have to be done. So for instance, in terms of agriculture, one of the things that is being promoted by us and being supported by us is the matter of taking water out of the Black River and irrigating our breadbasket. You know, Pedro, Flagaman, all of that area in St. Elizabeth. Because what we're currently doing, we're pumping fresh water for irrigation. And we recognize that you will have to reserve that fresh water for drinking. And then know, you know, because that generally speaking, unless your well gets contaminated, basically you pull water from a well, you drink it straight, you know. You don't really have, you only treat it when you treat well water, it's just a prophylactic that if in the course of the delivery something gets there to contaminate it, you know, there's some chlorine or something to kill those germs. But generally speaking, any well that has not been contaminated, you drink that straight. It's just like you go outside and the rain is falling out your mouth to the skies and drink. You would not worry about it. So we recognize that you have to protect the agricultural sector, and we have to also protect our as much of the fresh water. So what we say is go to the Black River and take the water to the Black River. All right, and you can do that, and you can irrigate. You can add that up, and you will get, you know, close to 2, 3, 4, over 4,000 hectares that can be irrigated from the Black River for all of that breadbasket area. Because the fact of the matter is, as I say, we work with the climate studies group, climate change is real. And this is how our future looks in terms of water balance and water stress. So you can see where we are now. Let's call it 2025, because we've been doing this since 2019, okay? And you can see the projected changes. So you have the actuals, which is 2019 and 2020, and in 2025 to 2080 are projected changes. And this is telling us that we have to manage our water because our water stress can only get worse. All right, for instance, as time gets hotter, evaporation levels are already high and they will also get higher. You know, the rain is coming in, evaporation takes place, right? I looked at the Mona Reservoir. I did this calculation 2 weeks ago, and this is just an academic calculation. So the reservoir is roughly 70 acres in terms of the surface area, roughly 70 acres. I use an average wind speed of 15 kilometers per hour. I use an average air temperature of 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets hotter than that. I use a humidity of 50%, and it may get less than that. And that gives an evaporation rate out of the Mona Reservoir of 85,000 gallons per hour. Now that's a lot of water evaporating, right? On a good day, they get in 12 million gallons, which works out to 500 gallons per hour. So during the time of the sun, while the sun is baking on the reservoir, 500,000 gallons are coming in and 85,000 gallons are evaporating. You don't even see it happening, right? If it's going, you see rain, but you don't see evaporation. And we don't, as a result of that, people really don't have a sense of what the effect of evaporation is. All right. So at the end of the day, over a 6-hour period during sunlight, that's 17% of the water gone. Over 24-hour period, that same amount of water that's gone amounts to roughly 4% of the inflow that would have come in gone. And there's no doubt that, you know, I just put this in here because we have to remember that we depend a lot on our rivers as well. While irrigation depends a lot on groundwater, a lot of the NWC systems, for instance, are surface flows, and they're all dependent on rain. For instance, the Somerset Falls, you may recall, it dried up last year, it dried up in 2019, dried up last year, it dried up in 2012, because the river is a short river. The David River is very short, and it's rain-fed. So there's not much room between where rain is falling and where rainwater is stored and where it erupts and then where it flows to go to the sea. So that is that. So the short-term response has always been water trucking, as we know. And we're using that even now in 2023 as we speak. Of course, there have been, you know, health and wellness issues leading to that. So you know, in terms of, you know, the sanitization of trucks, the type of tanks, all of these kind of things. Even how they handle the hoses. Who is handling the hose? You're collecting the water. What kind of container you're collecting the water in? You know, so all of these may present sanitation issues. So, you know, but this is one of the most expensive ways to move water around, water trucking. But it becomes almost default when you have formal delivery issues. There's rainwater harvesting. So the rainwater harvesting is continually being built out in schools to help to make them a little bit more resilient. It's actually now being rebuilt in communities. And these were built, some were built in the 50s and 60s. And, you know, new ones are being built again, or the old ones are being refurbished, because at the end of the day, you know, we have to make every drop count. All right. The matter of putting in detention ponds and retention ponds in the DAP, the development approval process, you know, that consideration is always there. It's always recommended, and it is entrained in the Greater Bernard Lodge Development Program. All right. Some of the rain, when we do get rain, of course, the rivers carry high turbidity, so we have to get back to the watersheds and reforest them. We have to maintain the wetlands. Mangrove preservation is important. Again, maintaining environmental flow is important. In the medium-term response now, there's a matter now of, you know, fixing fixing leaky pipes with NWC, that's ongoing. Improving distribution, that's ongoing. Because we've said to the NWC, you know, you tell me that you want to pull more water out of somewhere. We already are figuring on the max with what you can take. Fix the leaks. If your leaks are 60% or 50% or 70%, it means that really, you know, you could, let's put it this way. Up to 3 years ago, up to 3 years ago, Kingston was using 60 million gallons of water per day. Okay? Which means, of course, that you produce 60 million gallons of wastewater per day. And we can speak to that 60 million in another time. But now, Kingston is using 40 million gallons of water per day. Why? Because NWC have been on a massive leak detection and, you know, pipe repair program, and they've just by fixing, replacing pipes, not repair, replacing. Just by replacing pipes, they've cut down, they've saved 20 million gallons per day. All right. There's a real cool water supply project. I'll show you what that is in a little bit. The Ligonier Aquifer, it sits on, it's an aquifer that can be tapped in, but it's high nitrate. We're looking now, and we've worked with the National Water Commission. So there's a well that they have at Crossroads behind the post office, for instance. And that well always has been high in nitrates. However, the fact is that if you basically mix it with a lot of fresh water, then you reduce the nitrate level. It's all a matter of ratios. So by doing that, you know, you can get 2 million gallons coming on more. The Real Clover water supply project will bring 15 million gallons more into the system. We're looking at wells at Agawalta Vale, the Jordan Run wells at Georgia or Trove in Agawalta Vale, so that we can, because right now, if you know St. Mary, if you're familiar with that side of the world, Itoboreal, the Crystal Spring at Itoboreal is absolutely dry. So it is important now that we bring these wells on even, you know, double quick time. And there are other projects, of course, that need to be done. This is just a layout of a diagram of the water treatment plant that is going to be built at Content out in St. Catherine. And you drive right past this. If you drive on the north-south highway, you will see this excavation just it's to the right when you're heading north towards Ocherius, it's to the right. You'll see the ground cleared up now. You'll see tape and markers and everything setting out is going on for the plant that is to be built out there that will bring water into Kingston. We have the artificial growing water recharge system where we're putting water back into the aquifers, for instance, out at Innswood in St. Catherine. And if water is coming from, what it does is it increases a bank of usable water. It increases that buffer zone between fresh water and salt water to help to push back the salt water. And it creates storage, because you'll find that if 85,000 gallons can evaporate on a hot day out of Mono Reservoir, and if you could store that underground, then you wouldn't have the evaporation. I mean, one of the projects for Mono Reservoir now is to put solar panels across the reservoir so that the panels will shade the reservoir and reduce that evaporation, save it at 85,000 gallons per hour, and also so that you can generate some solar energy. All right. The Innswood Aquifer, the Innswood artificial recharge, it's gravity free, energy free, no electricity or anything. Water is taken from the canals in the irrigation canals. That dam that you pass at Angels across the Real Cobra is really an irrigation dam. That dam wasn't built for drinking water purposes. It's built for irrigation and for an irrigation network. What is happening is that because irrigation is down, they're able to sell more and more water to NWC for Spanish Town and so on. But the dam was built by the National Irrigation Commission for irrigation for agricultural purposes. All right. Now the thing with canals is you can't turn them off. Right? You can turn off a pipe. You can turn off a canal. If you stop the water flow, and to get it going again, it doesn't stay charged under pressure. So when the water is needed, you have to turn it on. When you turn it on, it's not immediate. So most times the water just runs. So what you find is that this canal system is a very expensive and elaborate system to still take water from the Real Cobra to the sea. So rather than have that happen, And also in times of rain, farmers don't use so much water. So once the water is not being drawn on by the clients of the NIC, it goes back into the ground. It goes in through sinkholes. There are 3 sinkholes, and it goes in through 2 abandoned wells. And that's exactly how it works. So the recharge points are those sinkholes. It's massive. It's 69 acres of property with all of what you're seeing right here. This is 69 acres. So that's the darkest is 4 settling ponds. And these 4 settling ponds get out, the stuff that's in the canal that you don't want to, the heavy stuff, maybe that slippers may come down, a dead bullfrog, who knows what, whatever it is. So those will settle out here, and then it goes into 8 wetland beds. So this is before the wetland beds were planted out. I should get an updated picture because the wetland beds actually now have, the plants in there, and the plants remove the nitrogen, the potassium, and the phosphate, the NPK, which really is fertilizer. So it keeps the plants healthy, and it cleans up the water so that it can be injected into the ground. All right. And of course, the long-term response to solve our problem, we determined that it's roughly $3 billion to solve the entire water problem, the water problem of the entire country. I don't know when that will ever materialize. But in the meantime, for instance, you remember I said that Kingston produces 40 million gallons of wastewater. No, what it means is that 40 million gallons gets treated and still goes to the sea. What we have to recognize is that in wastewater, forget the first 5 liters in wastewater and concentrate on the last 5 liters in wastewater. So forget WASTE and concentrate on WATER. Recognize that you do have a potential resource here that you can tap into. You can tap into it for agricultural purposes, for industrial purposes, and also for aquifer recharge. You may not want to, and agricultural, we know the whole situation. We're Jamaicans, and there are certain stigmas, but the fact is that you have orchard crops, for instance. You have non-consumptive crops, non-edible crops, for instance, cotton. When I was a boy, we had Sea Island cotton and the mills out at Guanabo Vale and everything, and we had what was arguably the best cotton this side of the Meridian line. There's no cotton in the US that was better than our cotton. I think the only cotton that would have rivaled us was Egyptian cotton. And where's cotton now, right? So you don't have to put it on callaloo and cabbage because nobody wants to. People generally are not accepting of using wastewater for irrigating that. But you could irrigate, for instance, the cassava that they're using, and the acres of cassava that have been put in for making beer and so on. Well, the matter of desalination, there is a matter of putting an extended ring around the islands, a pipeline ring, so that you can shunt water to wherever you want. Trans-basin water transfer, moving water from the north where there's a lot of water to the south where there's a lot of demand. Right, the Rio Bueno is probably our most reliable river. So while the Hope River will fall to 20% of its volume in the dry time, so you'd say it has a 20% reliability. The Rio Bueno may fall only 20% overall. So you'd say it has an 80% reliability. So that makes it attractive. I spoke about the Black River project. We're also there's also the matter of the Mahogany Vale Dam, a new dam at Hermitage, because that dam there, the Hermitage Dam, in 2027 is going to be 100 years old, at 3 years' time. And you never can tell what can happen when. So the long-term response, I said wastewater reuse, interbasin transfer, that's moving water from the north to the south. We've looked at these rivers, we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at leaving the environmental demand and whatnot. We've determined the surpluses, and we've said that, yes, this is what you can do. All right. I'll touch quickly on hydropower because people always ask that, what do we do? Why don't we do it? The fact is that in Jamaica, we are doing hydropower. Our biggest user of water is actually the JPS. with the hydropower plants that they use. Now, there's a difference between using and consuming. So they're using it, but it largely goes back into the river course. But they're using the largest amount of water to operate the hydro plants, and there's a potential for more. All right. This is so the red is what is there. The yellow is what is proposed by GPS to be coming on stream, and they've put that yellow for Great River over in the west there is now a green, and so it shows you that the potential is there. And of course, there is the matter of what we call now pumped hydro, where you're going to pump water from a lower reservoir to a higher reservoir. It could be seawater, it could be fresh water. If it is fresh water, you pump it from the lower reservoir. At night, you run the pumps. So the bottom is night, you run the pumps and you pump to the upper reservoir. All right? And then you release it. And as you release it, it generates electricity. In the daytime, all right? In the daytime, sorry, the top is when you're pumping it to the upper reservoir, all right? And then it's released that night. And then in the night is when you're, I'm confusing myself. My apologies. What we're showing you here is that you pump to the upper reservoir, and then in coming down, it generates electricity. And that it does make sense as if you consider doing it at the time when there's least demand on electricity. You do it then it becomes common sense. So that's how it works. Something else that we've gone and looked at, the Norwegians are developing this. They're eager to try it in Jamaica, but we really don't want to be the guinea pigs. We know that the Saudis also are looking at it, and if it does happen in Saudi Arabia, they've told us that if it does happen there, they will bring us there to look at it and see how it works. In that, water is heavy. Most of us have carried a bucket of water at some time in our lives, and a gallon of water weighs 10 pounds. So if you put a plant 100 meters or 100 meters below sea level, you can use the weight of the water to push the water itself, use its own weight to push it through the membranes that would desalinate it, rather than using electricity to push it through and create the fresh water. And then you would just use very much smaller pumps to pump that fresh water to surface. That's basically the essence of what this is about. And let's say that physically it is, and chemically it is a great part. It is more than possible. It is a matter of the economics. It is a matter of what you're going to be selling that water to the NWC for. Will not be onerous to the customers, because Jamaicans will pay a lot. They'll pay. Electricity rates move, and Jamaicans, they even blink. They really don't blink. We don't even look at it. We just keep on paying the light bill. But if the water rate moves a blip, we notice that, and it's a problem. So that is it. And then we look quickly now at water-related impacts. We do get a lot of rain, as I say, even notwithstanding the fact of climate change and everything. We still get, in parts of Jamaica, over 4,000 millimeters of rain per year. And it causes flooding. Now we have different kinds of flooding. Basically, in Jamaica, we suffer 5 kinds of flooding. All right. We suffer the rivers flood, we call it riverine flooding. Rain falls in the towns, we call it urban runoff. Storms are passing, the storm surge. The surface water can flow to a depression and fill up that depression because sinkholes are blocked. And we get surface water induced depression flooding like Newmarket and Chigwell and so on, and Harmons in Clarendon. And we can get groundwater induced depression flooding. We get so much water that the groundwater rises and fills depressed areas like the Money Lake. So this is riverine flooding, Hope River. We've seen, and some of you may have had occasion to, see what's happening at Hope River. This is Hope River again. This is the Wagwater River down at Broadgate. That house eventually went. This is Money. and the Money Lake, and as the groundwater rises, you know, there's the problem, there's new market, and of course the urban flooding. So these are all issues on the coastal flooding. Caribbean Terrace in Harborview basically is destroyed, you know, from the passing of Hurricane Ivan. So we prepare floodplain maps, we declare flood water control areas, we give the criteria for when you know, the NWA, for instance, want to do any structures to mitigate flood impacts. We are integral in the development of the National Flood Water Control Master Plan. And of course, as I said, for instance, with Bogwart Guards and so on. And we're looking at early warning system now for Port Maria. You know, where we build out early warning systems. We produce groundwater elevation data. We operate our own rainfall intensity gauges. So we then produce the maps and we can show you, you know, where the flooding is, where the flooding will be if you have, you know, a 5-year flood, a 10-year return period flood, a 50-year return period flood, or whatever. All right. This is just a picture of what, you know, how our real-time data comes in from the Bogwart system. So we can see the rainfall, we can see the intensity, we can see the river. The top line really is how the river is moving and responding over at the 12, you know, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, over a week. All right. So in terms of the Bogwart Gorge, you know, we work with the ODPM, we work with the NWA, we work with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and everybody has their role to play in the whole thing. NWA own the bridge, police can close it, or ADPM have the mechanism to send out the calls, and we have the mechanism to do the monitoring, to set the trigger level and say the time is now. Just to close off, what we really want to say is that at the end of the day, talk about the 3 R's, you know, reduce, recycle, you know, and so on. Really, we at the Water Resources Authority have 6 R's. So the reclaiming, you know, water from wastewater, reclaiming water from seawater. The restrict is restricting the use of water and not wasting it. The reuse is reusing water where possible. Reducing your use on fresh water, your demand on fresh water. Redirect and so on. Redirecting your fresh water, moving it from one place to another. Or reserving is not using it, using something alternative, using wastewater where possible so that you can reserve your fresh water, for instance. So these have to be a part of our all-time response, because at the end of the day, every single drop is precious. Thank you.
Wow. Mr. Clarke, that was really, I had no idea that these things were even being done in Jamaica. I just had no idea. Really impressed with you know, your overall grasp of the whole situation. And I'm sure there are lots of persons who will have questions to ask.
Sure.
But let me probably just start with something.
Yes.
There are a lot of high rises going up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the approval process is like, so that, you know, or what strain it is putting on the water supply situation. Is this just something which is the approval by KCC? How does the approval process work so that people know that they can provide the water that is going to be necessary?
All right. So all of these developments, their approval, it goes to the KCC or the municipal corporation. It goes to the municipal corporation for approval in terms of structural integrity. Will it fall down? Will it stay up? All right. In terms of everything else now, it goes to NEPA for approval. So NEPA has to determine, and they have the overarching responsibility to determine, you know, is it an environmental hazard? You know, are there environmental issues that need to be mitigated or whatever? Now, when it comes now to impact water resources, and this is directly impacted now in terms of contaminations and so on, it will come to us and we look at it. The fact is that here what's happening. First of all, when these things are built, the NWC only brings water to 4 floors. NWC does not bring water to higher than 4 floors. So what it means is that if you build something that's going past 4 floors, you have to put the mechanism in place to move it to floor 5 or floor 20. You know, you have to put in your storage and whatever and put in your pumps to pump it up there. Simply because if NWC was to pressure their system for it to get to the top of Pegasus, then it will blow up. That same pressure that they'd have to put in the system to make it reach the top of Pegasus will blow up every pipe and every toilet in Trafalgar Park. All right, so that is what that restriction is about. What you find actually is that, yes, the high rises are being built, all right? But really, is it that more people are moving into Kingston? Not necessarily, all right? So if Kingston, if the 40 million gallons that's used by Kingston is being used by, let us pick it. It's not a correct figure, it's a notional figure. The 40 million gallons a day is being used by 600,000 people. All right. So at the end of the day, what is happening is that those 600,000 people are moving around in Kingston and some are moving up into the high rises. But the new demand is not as phenomenal as you think. What it means is that somebody who was living with mom and pop up in Cherry Gardens, and they have now grown up, and they are now still living at home, and they know they got a good job, and they can now buy their apartment. So that moves drinking that water just move location from to a high rise in New Kingston. All right. So whatever it is that would put you in the position, a lot of what is happening is that it's not like people know that's moving in from Clarendon and or somewhere else and buying into it.
Okay.
It doesn't happen, but it's not as much as we think.
All right, I see some hands up, so I'll come back to you, but I let me go with some of the hands that are up, and I see Rasta, I see your hand up. You go next. I think you are the next person.
Yes, thank you, Shuvi. I thank you for the presentation. It has been extremely educational. What I noticed though is that you speak more about quantity and much less about quality. And I think about the frequent fish kill in the Rio Cobre. I think that there should be some educational aspect as to how we use our river, especially those.
Please close your mics, please, if you're not on the floor, please.
Especially who are upstream and how their care of the river affect those further downstream. So I don't know the different agencies that look about that part of it, and you are just solely bent on providing sufficient water.
Right. So the NEPA really is responsible for water quality in the rivers and what's happening there. So you hear that they get called out all the time. Not that we don't have an interest or we don't have a concern as well. All right, because we do monitor water quality as well. And if we determine anything that somebody has done something and it would have, you know, as the Americans say, snuck past somebody else, you know, at least we could pick it up and, you know, notify the NEPA about it. So especially for rivers and surface water and so on. Thing with rivers is that they recover. You shut off whatever it is that's polluting it, and in 2 days or whatever, the river is recovered. The groundwater, if you pollute the groundwater, we pollute the groundwater with bauxite waste from the 50s and 60s, and it's still polluted. So that is we do monitor the rivers, as I said, but our big concern with what we monitor is the groundwater, whether from in the 50s and 60s when you clear the same, the salt water coming, or from the 50s and 60s and 70s when we had them, and 80s when we were using the red mud lakes and so on. So I mean, all of those now have to be cut out. So you know, UC Rizal have done a whole lot of work out there with protecting groundwater, but then they were still having issues with spillage that would be going to the rivers and contaminating the river, the fish spill and so on. Now I've heard the government say that they are going to put a ban on any discharge to rivers, to the Rio Cobre, on any discharge to the Rio Cobre, which if I don't see how that's going to happen. Personally, it seems very difficult to, because at the end of the day, if it does happen, what you're going to do? It just don't happen, and you're going to find somebody or whatever it is. So I don't think that it will make it not happen, but it will at least give people cause to retool and readjust and all of that if they can avoid it. But I agree with you that you may not have heard me speak so much about, water quality and contamination. I mean, I did speak about water quality in terms of, especially the groundwater, or we map what's happening with groundwater and so on. But yeah, the water quality for the rivers is a concern, of course. The good thing, as I said, rivers is they recover a whole lot quicker.
Thank you very much. I see another hand up. Thank you, Rasta. Candice Carby, you can go ahead.
Thank you. I was thinking along the lines of the developments, but more so that a lot of them now have concrete or hard surfaces, and I was wondering if that is having an impact on just how much water is absorbed in the aquifers, and if that's something that you are monitoring for as well, or have any guidelines to say that for each development they should have X amount of soft, either green space or whatever, so the water can permeate and fill back the aquifer.
All right, so yes, Candice, that's a good question. The fact is that the more hardscape you put in, the more you intercept water that will be percolating into the ground to recharge or to whatever. So for instance, for large developments, we insist that they put in now, that they put in, the detention ponds and the swales and all of these other things that can help to do that. In terms of, so for instance, in Kingston, yeah, you take down a house in Old Pastures that was only covering, the concrete was only covering, a third of the property, or 3/4 of the property, and then you put up a high rise, and then between the building itself and the paving that you do around, you're down to 95% of the property on the concrete. Runoff is going to increase, which means that our urban flooding definitely will get more pronounced. Without a shadow of a doubt, our urban flooding will get more pronounced. Now the thing is that most of what is happening is already in a metropolitan area. All right. So there's not much that can be done in terms of putting in a mitigating measure like a detention pond or so on. But for instance, out in St. Catherine and the other areas, now the areas that are the suburbs, those areas for sure, it is a part of what we recommend that they should be doing.
Okay. Before I go to Stephen, thank you, Candice. You use the term detention pond and you also use retention pond. I don't think I quite understood the difference. Can you explain?
All right, so it's all a matter of the holding time. So a detention pond holds the water for a shorter period. All right. What it may do is it may still overflow, but at least it creates some amount of catchment and holding before it then overflows. While the retention pond now will be deeper, will have higher berms so that it holds the water and prevents much less of the runoff or the runaway, the flow away. So that's the difference between detention pond and
okay. But are these being used? You mentioned Florida, but in Jamaica, I don't recall seeing much of these. Or are they there? You just don't see them?
No. We're insisting that they need to be used. And so with the Greater Bernard Lodge, we're a part of the discussions with that in terms of, all of that proper land out there that's going to be done, the housing and everything. And a part of the development process, which has been brought to the purchasers of property and to the developers of property, and the areas have already been identified and have been drawn into the development plan, that the areas that have to be reserved and remain as ponds and lakes.
So this is new. This is now being done. Not that it wasn't being done long years ago.
This is something that I've asked, that I've lobbied for. Because
Okay.
let me tell you something. We recognize how valuable land is, and we recognize how much land is exploited. Look at Portmore. When you look at Portmore, remember in Portmore they put in these things called paths. Instead of roads, they put in paths, which are half the width of a road, of a lane.
Oh,
of
yes.
There's only one reason, you know. The more of those you put in, the
More
less
houses, more units you can build.
you can get in another row of houses. So you realize how much of a fight we had at the WRA to get them to say, you can't, 30 acres over there, so you can't put no house nor nothing. But we want to put houses there, we want to put commercial there, so we're fine. But is it, you know, so it was a hard sell, but it got sold.
Good. Okay, Stephen, I think you are next up.
Yes, Mr. Clarke, great presentation. Thank you very much. I had two questions. The first one has to do with cloud seeding. You would have seen in the news recently that in Dubai they had a situation with flooding. And my question was whether you could share some insight into cloud seeding, because I believe that it was something that is very scientific and very controlled. So I'm trying to understand as a layman how it got out of control. And the second part of the question, is cloud seeding ever something that you think Jamaica would ever consider?
All right.
And then I'll come with a third question after that. If you could address that, please.
First of all, you know, cloud seeding was even, I recognize what they found back in the day, like in the American Civil War, and every one of those shows that you watch, you ever notice how they're always fighting in some serious mud?
Yes.
After the battle, there's always a severe thunderstorm. And some scientists sat down and said, why does it rain afterwards? And then they realized that the gunpowder and the crystal, the gunpowder and so on were going up into the atmosphere and creating that little object that the water molecule could go attach itself to, and then water molecule attract water molecule, and then the molecule get to here and it has to fall as rain. So now basically they disperse silver iodide crystals into the atmosphere. The problem with cloud seeding, so that is all the science.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to have clouds. It can't happen in blue sky. So if it's a situation where it's the middle of summer and there is blue sky, it can't happen. You need the water vapor. You need the amounts, a certain level of water vapor to be present. What you're trying to do is encourage the clouds to rain. The problem with cloud seeding is you can't turn it. You can turn it on, but you can't turn it off. It's gonna stop when it feels like. Now, Dubai had two issues. It stopped when it feels like, because Dubai, generally speaking, didn't have rain, haven't had any rain like that from God knows when. So, you know, the whole system, the flood, the whole drainage system wasn't prepared for it. So they got flooded out. The question of if we would consider it, we not only would consider it, we have considered it and we have done it. So we seeded clouds back in the 80s. All right. So we had a cloud program and they were here with the cloud. And just like I said, they turned it on and they couldn't turn it off. That is why we had that nice pretty bridge outside of Mapen all of these years that we're driving on at the bottom of Glenmuir Road there. Because the original bridge went with the flooding that took place. Okay. I don't know who can recall it, but maybe somebody here can jump in and I don't remember. Maybe you're all too young and don't remember. But you know, we lost that bridge, and then everybody had to be driving through the town of Mapen, which I can tell you was the headache of headaches to drive through and use the old railway bridge. That was the only bridge across the railway. Honestly, okay. Across the alley bridge and then come back up, you know. So okay, we've done it, and it's not something that's gonna happen, because the other thing you can do is you can see the clouds here and the rainfall in Cuba. Because we are so small, and I remember that when you look at the map of the globe, we are at that. So it wouldn't be difficult for you to see the cloud here, and then by the time the whole process goes through, you know, the rainfall out on the sea, and the sea don't need
Yeah.
it. So it's not gonna happen. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
All right. Okay, thank you. And quickly, one last point. Can you share a little bit of insight into what is popularly called Reggae Falls, which is in St. Thomas? The dam that is there, was it once a hydroelectric system? Can it be re-energized, or is it just a collection dam, or is it just a tourist attraction now?
It's just a tourist attraction now. Reggae Falls was a hydroelectric dam. I think I had it in.
But what caused it to be taken out of the system, and is there any plans for it in the future?
No, there are no plans for it in the future. I'll tell you what happened to Reggae Falls. That dam was built by the Cedar, all right. Cedar, the Canadian something another, CIDB.
CEDA, Canadian International Development Agency or something like that.
Development. But again?
I think CEDA was this Canadian International Development Agency or something like that.
It was built by one of them, either CEDA or CIDB.
Okay.
It was built to generate hydropower. That was the idea, for it to generate hydropower. A lot of problems were a part of it. The fact is that it is in Surge Island, and it has happened in the past, and I'm sure it will happen again, that all of Surge Island is just so flat. There's nowhere really to safely put a structure that you can say will never be flooded out. All right? So one of the things that happened was that the structure was flooded out. The other thing that happened was that they were not aware of the power, what was actually the Jamaican power supply and everything. So the thing was spec'd out wrong. So it just could not generate the power that and put it into because I think it was supposed to help Surge Island and also to be put into the national grid. And as far as I know, there was that issue. But the main issue really was the dam itself is a good location, but they didn't have anywhere to safely put the other stuff, the other pertinences. So as you can see from the picture, the dam wall is still there, the pipeline is still there, which would carry the water through to turbines and so on. And it's not, and the funny thing is, people say, so why they don't use it for for drinking water and everything? And what we call it, what's the place called now? Spring Garden, no, by Goodyear, those Goodyear wells and everything. Those are what are supplying the water for Morant Bay. And we were supplying the water and water going all the way back towards White Horses and so on. So of course, as I said, one of the big expenses with water is to treat it. So you treat well water a whole lot less chemicals than you use for river water or whatever. So the water providers, as much as they can opt for using something that they can spend less money to treat, they do that.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that insight.
Okay, I see President Newton was up next. Can you pull down your screen for me, Mr. Clarke? Right, so I can see the rest of it. Okay.
Thank you, DP Stuart. Before I go further, could I ask a member for the Kiwanis Club of Kingston to move for an extension of 15 minutes for us to conclude?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder, please? Can I have a seconder?
I second, President.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clarke. Can't believe I could have sat for over an hour listening about water and still hearing things that I didn't know. It's one of those things when you think you know only to hear the expert talk and you realize that you didn't know. My question is actually an extension of what you had said about retention ponds.
Yeah.
Because I've always heard it said that Jamaica don't have a supply problem. What we have is a storage problem. And I remember even at one stage I heard them saying the Bagua Gorge was going to be turned into a dam, and that would be solve all our problems and all of that. Why is it that we keep undulating from too much water to no water at all, when all the experts keep saying all we have to do is build retention facilities? If that is so, what has kept us from doing that?
All right, so no, Jamaica doesn't have a it's not a storage problem that we have, it's a distribution problem. We have enough water that if we could put in the network and everything to move the water wherever we want it, whenever we want it, you wouldn't even need a 600-gallon black tank at your house. Agree? So in the same way, if Water Commission, for instance, can put themselves in a position where they know that they can always, every day, have 60 million gallons of water, maybe they won't even want to have Mona Reservoir or whatever. That's just being facetious, but just to put it that it's not a storage problem, it's a distribution problem. Why is it that we keep going from one to the other? Because we need to, and we have not done it, and we need to build out build out distribution better. And because we know we can't build distribution to the extent that we would need to build it to make the network self-sufficient, we also have to put in storage. All right. So Mono Reservoir went low for, there was a time when for 2-3 years, more than and a period last year and into the year before, Mona Reservoir just couldn't get filled. So the question is, if you put another reservoir, how you gonna fill that when you can't fill Mona Reservoir at any given time? So the situation is you just have to be strategic with it. All right. Which is why we say, for instance, if you're going to do a storage, build a dam at Mahogany Vale up in the mountains. You can do two things. You can then hold back a whole lot more of the Yalos River, and you can still let the environmental flow go downstream. And because you're moving from that elevation down, you can generate electricity as well and offset, and put power into the grid and everything, and make it a win-win. All right. In terms of storage, and sometimes people ask the question, why don't we desilt the Mona Reservoir? When Mona Reservoir was built in the early 50s, late 40s into the early 50s, it leaked for 3 years and couldn't hold any water. So because it was continuously leaking, the water company of the day, which was the National Water Authority, that's what it was called then, but it became National Water Commission. The National Water Authority said to the Public Works Department, who built it, they said, yeah, give it to us. Give it to us leaking. So they took it leaking, they took out back all of the bottom, they went out to St. Catherine and got some of the nice, pretty red clay mud out there, brought it in, relined the bottom and everything. All right. So years have been going on, it's been used, sediment has been coming in. Yes. However, to desilt it means that essentially you have to take it out of service. Now we can't take Mona Reservoir out of service for 2 days, much less 2 months to desilt it, or 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it's going to take to desilt it, because we have no alternative in the meantime. All right. Yeah, you can go to the side and shovel out some stuff, but what you'll be shoveling out would be what you'd gain from that is probably 2 hours extra worth of water supply. It is estimated now that the sediment in there is roughly 8 to 10. It's roughly probably 8 to 10% sediment. All right, which in the wider scheme of things is, if nothing else is coming in and if everything shuts down and that's all depending on, that's 5 days worth of supply. So to run that risk for an additional 5 days worth of supply, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Regards to Hermitage Dam, now, because it is on a river, you can always just be moving the riverbed and be desilting that. The problem with it, as I said, it is 97 years old, right? So it's gone through a lot in its lifetime. It has survived a number of earthquakes, as all kinds of things have happened. You don't know. Let me use, I don't know, you can see my camera. You can see, you're seeing the camera, right? Let us say this is the dam wall. Let us say that this is the dam wall, and back here is where the reservoirs are. Let me do it this way. So here's where the reservoir is, and it spills over and it goes that way. I have all the sediment here. At this stage of the game, we don't know how much this sediment is doing to help to counter the overturning momentum that can be in the structure, so that it wants to tip this way. But because it has all of the sediment here pushing at the toe of it, it can't, the inside toe can't come in this way, can't come in this way, so that the top goes that way. All right. You don't know how much of that is in play, for instance. So you also have to be careful with that. With regards to putting a dam in the Bogwart Gorge, that was bandied about, and especially the Chinese. And I'll tell you that my own opinion, and a lot of why they were pushing it, is selfishness, because if you close the Bogwart Gorge, then you have nowhere to drive but on the, what you call it, the highway. All right. But the fact is that when you drive through the gorge, you see the rock faces that are there. You see that it's limestone, and you see that it's highly fissured limestone, which means that apart from just building a dam wall, you'd have to find a way to seal the entire face of the dam all the way back up past Kent Village, because to hold any substantial, the river is so flat that to hold any substantial water, you would have to build a dam wall that would flood out Kent Village and probably flood out back to Lower Bogwalk, which is not necessarily where the town part is, but when there's parts of Bogwalk that's under the bridge, below the bridge level, and so on, when you're going into Bogwalk itself by the roundabout. So you'd build up a great hydrostatic pressure. And with the rock being so fissured, it is not unlikely that all of that water, not all, but a lot of that water would start springing up out at Spring Village and other places out in St. Catherine, because the limestone creates a lot of conduit flow underground, which is why you have in the Coptic country, for instance, we'll see a river or a stream, and then it sinks and you don't know where it goes. And when we put our dyes, we put fluorescein dye or another dye inside there, and put the receptors put receptors like at Dunn's River and at Roaring River and all these other places, and then you see traces coming up. So we know, for instance, that that such and such a sink feeds back to Dornoch Head on the mouth and in Trelawney or whatever. Such and such a sink feeds back to. That's how we know, for instance, that Money Lake feeds to White River. So the Money Lake actually feeds to White River because we put the dyes in the Money Lake and we get the receptors. They tell us that. So with this conduit flow, you could have a lot of flooding cropping up in places you don't want flooding to crop up in built out areas, and you couldn't control it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
The last person with a hand up is Shernet Scott. So that would be your last question, and then I have a wrap. Okay, go ahead, Shernet.
Good evening. Sir, I have my land out in the country, and I decided that I want to make my own well to store some water. But I was listening to a feature on JIS recently, and they said that I cannot build my own well, or I would have to pay NWC. There's a difference between building your well underground and your well out of the ground. I need some clarification on that, please.
All right. So your well will always be underground. That's the first thing. But you need to structure above the ground to access the well underground. Right? So let's get back to basics. You have a property and a river runs through it, a spring runs through it, and you're going to use the water for your own domestic. You have what you right. You are free to access that water and use it for your domestic purposes. You want to pipe it into your house, flush it, pipe it into your kitchen. You have a garden in the back, you have a bed, and you have a full house with 50 chickens. That's fine. When you build out a full house, that a full coop, that holds 3,000 chickens, that's a domestic purpose anymore, you've gone commercial. Once you're not using it for your own personal domestic purposes, you have to pay, you have to be licensed to abstract it. Because obviously what it means is that, remember, even though the water is on your property, it's going somewhere else. It's not coming on your property and sitting there. It's going somewhere else. And it is quite likely that you have an ecological or an environmental or what's the other one now? What's the money one? There's another E for money. That interest that could be affected. So all of that has to be considered. So all of those people also would have riparian rights. So imagine you had it there using as your house, your domestic need, and upstream from you, somebody decided to build a 3,000 chicken coop and take all the water, put it in there because they need it for that. You wouldn't be a happy camper. All right. So that's what that is. Now, in terms of groundwater, once you want to drill a well in the ground, anywhere, you have to apply for a permit to drill a well. Cost $15,000. You get the permit, you drill the well. When you drill the well, if you find oil, you go talk to the Minister of Energy and you go talk to Bill Gates and all of those nice people you know be moving in company with. Quite likely you won't find oil. You find water, and you almost find water, but if you find water, then you come back and you talk to us. You know we'll have to get a license to abstract that water. $45,000 for 5 years. That's your license. So every 5 years, you renew your license for $45,000. All right, and you can then use the well. What we will determine is how much you can use, because as I said before, you can have interference. So you can interfere. Remember that you're pulling from a body of water that's under the ground that somebody else may also be pulling from. So you may interfere with that already. Or you wouldn't like to have your well going and then somebody drill a new well next year down the road and draw away all the water. You don't want it. You would not be a happy camper. So that is where we come in, because we're the scientists. We can do the calculations. And when we do the calcs and the specs and everything, we said this is the amount that you can get. You may have wanted that. You may have wanted to build a 5,000 fowl cube, but you can only get enough water to do a 3,000 fowl cube or whatever. Or yes, it may be enough, and yes, you can get the 5,000 fowl cube. It plays like that. But it all is within the matter of allocation. Because on my first slide, we are mandated by law to, among other things, to allocate. And we have to allocate in a scientific way. We can't allocate because it's friend. So for instance, in St. Catherine, there are no new wells. We put a moratorium, no new wells in St. Catherine, and this is from in the 70s. All right? Because the balance is such that if you put any more wells, you'll be taking more than what is going in to replenish the wells. So any well you see drilling in St. Catherine now is not a new well. In a sense, what it is a replacement well. So you had a well before, and the well is now, clogged up or whatever, or the well caved in on you or whatever. You can replace that well, but no new wells, no matter who you are. When older Samuda was the Minister of Water, just before he got moved to education, he was the Minister of Water for a little bit. He had a big horse farm and everything out Riversdale. You wanted to do a well. I had to look at him and I said, no, boss, you can't get no well because there's a moratorium, no new wells. As a matter of fact, we're considering a moratorium now. We're doing the studies to determine if we need to put a moratorium out at Yalas and also out at the lower rim, So that's where it is. But that's the situation, my dear, in that it's not the Water Commission you'll be talking to, you'll be talking to us. When you talk to the Water Commission is if you do have such a productive well that maybe you can be selling the Water Commission some water for them to distribute to the rest of your friends and neighbors. And that happens. There are a number of persons who their own private well is supplying the National Water Commission as well.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Chairman.
Not beyond it, because I said that Water Commission doesn't pump beyond the 4th floor. They are correcting me to say that they may be so, that not be on the 2nd floor. But there's a restriction on how high they will be pumping.
Okay. We have to wrap now. But in closing, I just want a perspective on this. And this is the last question as well. You mentioned that we could use about $3 billion US to solve our water situation, right? So what I would like to understand is how would we spend that? What would we spend that on? Just, I don't think you have it all mapped out. Yes, they're in your head right now. But give us an idea. And also, what is the government's plan? I know you are a government agency, but you are not the politician. So what is the government's next step? Other than that particular area you showed us, where on the right-hand side, there were, you showed us a picture where they're gonna build some, I forget, a facility. I can't remember what you described it as.
Yeah.
What new is going in? What is new? What new do we have to look forward, or do we have to go put up that 40 gallon, that 600 gallon tank?
If you don't have one yet, you're blessed. So what's the next step? All right. The NEPA is now redrafting the treated effluent guidelines so that we can start allowing and encouraging people to use treated wastewater for other purposes other than just dumping it. All right. And a lot of companies produce a lot of wastewater. And that would mean that water that they would be using for good water that they're using for other purposes gets reserved. That's one. In terms of the US 3 billion, what it means is that we have pipes in Kingston, in Montego Bay, in Morant Bay, and in most of our towns that are over 60 years old. They've gone past their useful life and need to be changed out. So what I was just talking wholesale now. So that money includes a wholesale change out of your pipe networks and making it new and leak free. That means putting in where there's one pump, buying a duty pump, also putting in a standby pump, because many of our systems don't have a standby pump. They only have the duty pump, so that we can have a reliable supply. What it means is going back to putting in more you're asking about in terms of building the dam and so on. When the Yellows pipeline was built, the Yellows pipeline is 19 miles long, coming from above Landoy to Kingston, to Mona Reservoir. No pumping, zero pump, zero electricity, all gravity. There's a section where we had to do a tunnel, 1,104 feet long tunnel, because we didn't want to lose gravity by going back over a mountain. So we had to go through the mountain to maintain the gravity flow. And that whole pipeline, which at the time cost $6.5 million, and it was opened in 1986. The amount of money that I spent in total between design and construction was $6.5 million Jamaican dollars. Can you imagine how much it would be to put in the Yellows pipeline now? Them just putting in some little 4-inch pipelines, and it's millions of dollars in it. And this is a pipeline that's 36 inches in diameter. A tunnel that's 1,104 feet long, 7 feet in diameter, significant pressures. So the pipe is thick, as opposed to the pipe. Those pipes are the minimum thickness on those pipes is 3/8 of an inch. There's a lot of steel we're talking about out there. It will be billions just to do that now. And that was one segment of a major project called the Blue Mountain Water Supply Scheme, which includes putting in a tunnel through the Blue Mountain and bringing water from the back Rio Grande over to this side through dump it into the Yellows area, into the Yellows headwaters, so that it can also be captured in our Marvinaville Dam and things. So building out all of these things, that's what I'm talking about. All right. Going back to Rio Cobre, not to Rio Cobre, to Rio Bueno, and putting in the pipeline that we asked for them to put in when they were putting in the North-South Highway. And I said, well, boy, it's not a water project, it's a road project. That kind of say, but put it in, because one day you're going to have to move water from the north to the south. So you should have what dig up and you have the infrastructure, the pipe. And pipes can sit under the ground for 20, 30 years, and not very happen to them. That kind of pipe, not the liquid, not I'm not talking like the galvanized pipes and so on. So what is going to happen what can happen now? And also joining up the whole country in a ring around the island. So that you can shunt water from where it is to where it's short, or where you have a problem, you can shunt water right around. And we can do a lot of it right now. Those wells that I told you about in Agualta Vale that are being looked at in Agualta Vale is to help the Negril problem. Now Negril is 100 and how much miles to the west. But the fact is that if those wells come on, then those wells can put more water into Port Maria, which means that the White River that's going to Port Maria can go the other way, all right, and go towards St. Anne's Bay, which means that the Roaring River, which is going into St. Anne's Bay, because the White River is now coming into St. Anne's Bay, the Roaring River can go more this way. And then the Martha Bay that's coming more into Runaway Bay and Discovery Bay, more can go to Montego Bay. And then because more is going to Montego Bay, the Great River that's going into Montego Bay, more of it can go west towards Lucia and Green Island and Negril. So it's a cascade. We call it cascading. We call it it's not trickle down. It's a.
Okay, it's complex.
One influence the other.
All right, Mr. Clarke, and you have done well. You have done extremely well. Let President Newton, back to you, and you can invite VP Rupert.
I certainly will need to, because I know it's past some people's bedtime. And Mr. Clarke, just to point out to you, sir, how interesting this talk has been. Normally our meetings end at about 8:30. It's now minutes past 9, and if you don't watch it, we'll still be asking your questions at 10 o'clock. So in order to short circuit that, because I know we don't want to impose on your time anymore, we're going to ask VP, meaning distinguished President Rupert Whitaker, to give a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the members, friends, or guests, all the Kiwanians who are on board this evening, just want to say thanks to the authority and the National Water Resources Authority, Mr. Peter Clarke. Sir Peter, you not only made your organization proud, but I have a funny feeling that Jamaica needs to hear, not only us as Kiwanians, but Jamaica needs to hear what you told us about tonight. I don't think most Jamaicans understand your work and what you have been doing, the comprehensive nature of how we can rely upon you and the things you have to help our nation. So can you get on JS, sir, and on RGR and those other media companies, and I'll go around Jamaica and do some tours on water. And we'll wish you well on that, especially this time. So thank you so much, sir. We don't have the time, but boy, you treated us to some physics, some chemistry, some mathematics, some geography, some
law,
geology, some all kinds of stuff. Thank you so much. The Kiwanis Club of Kingston, whenever we have guest speakers, we give them a very special token, and we are going to be sending one out to you. So it's a certificate that tells you of our appreciation, and you will certainly get that. We wish you well at the National Water Resources Authority, and take back our greetings to your staff, sir. You not only made yourself an organization proud, but we want your staff to know that you are a gentleman. Thank you. On behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston.
Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Rupert, Mr. Whitaker. Thank you. And it's my pleasure. And yes, I am on GIS. I was on morning time because of the Negro situation the other day with Neville and Simone. I'm out there. I was at Town Hall last week, Thursday. I was at Town Hall in Port Antonio and all over. I've spoken to I've spoken to what's your friendly other club name?
You mean Rotarians?
Lions?
Rotarians.
Okay.
But yes, we could get more of the word out. I agree. And I thank you for your kind words.
Okay, sir.
And the Kiwanis Club of Kingston will be doing our part, because everything that took place tonight is on our YouTube channel for persons to go. I certainly will go back, and I'm pretty sure I only took in about 1/10 of what you said. Each time we watch it, I'm pretty sure we will have a greater understanding of what is taking place. So, as was said before, thank you, Mr. Clarke.
You're most welcome.
Okay.
On the club, right?
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. At this time, we're going to ask the Sergeant at Arms, Chairman Zuri Johnson, to come in and do his thing. Chairman Zuri, Sarge.
Good evening, everyone. So
Good evening,
when
sir.
church got too long, to walk out, so we're not going to keep it too long. We're just going to pass the collection plate quickly. So we're starting with Kiwanian Christopher for his failure to recognize a fellow Kiwanian brother. After 2 introductions, with the AGM being the 3rd introduction, $500. So we have some retroactive ones to drop in the offering plate this evening, starting with Chairman Radcliffe and his new members, Zauri, Zari. I don't even know how to pronounce that one, $500. Chairman Avian for his disappearance at the nursing outreach, $500. DP Stew for the wrong subject line in his email, adding the MD and the National Water Authority, $500. DLG Willie, we can't leave you out. You have to drop something in the collection plate this evening for your April 23rd inadvertent omission of the report of the nominating committee and the incorrect guest speaker name, also $500. And Chairman Arsenio for his disappearance at the AGM and for being the unrecognizable weekly presenter of the Objects of Kiwanis, $500. Have a good evening, everyone.
Sarge, that was really DLG Willie, that wasn't my mistake.
I saw you in the front.
Yeah, I had to reply to it, so that's why you saw the same information.
All right, so I'll give him half the charge then. So his move up from 500 to 750.
Sarge, right. I would never want to correct the Sarge, yes, Sarge, but we have a tradition in Kiwanis, and it's that whatever the Sarge says is never wrong, and anyone who tries to correct the Sarge usually gets their charge double. So instead of, I think you went the wrong direction. Instead of half it, you should have doubled. Anyway.
We're learning.
Thank you, Sarge. And we have the names: Chris, Radcliffe, Avian, Stuart, Willie, and Arsenio. Please don't let we have to send a collector come to your houses. You have the account number. Make the transfer. All right. Thank you. At this point, we are going. Oh, DP Marcel is traveling. Is anybody deputizing for him for the thought of the week? No?
President, I believe you have announcements.
Okay, well, I was just going to ask, without that, no, I was going to ask DLG Willie to just take us through the announcements.
Yeah, before I do that, President, please remind the Sergeant that he also is liable to a fine. You can impose that on him at any time.
He's listening, sir.
That's okay. He'll learn as well. In respect to announcements, a very quick amount. Of course, we all know that this ECNC District Convention begins on Thursday, goes through till Saturday evening. So far, 9 members have registered. The next DCM is slated for Sunday, June the 16th. And I just reminding members, those of you who have not bought tickets for annual Barbie Pride, that's taking place on Friday, May 31st at the home of DP Major Richard Reese, 11A Fairway Avenue, followed by After Work Lime. The cost of the tickets is $2,500. And insofar as interclubs, we have a special invitation from the capital city to attend the 10th anniversary next week, Wednesday, May 22nd, at their meeting place at Betty Game and Lottery. The other interclubs, I will circularize those in the morning before I go down to district convention. Those are all the announcements and interclubs for the time being. President Newton, you may ask if anybody from any other club may have an announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, DLG Willie. And as DLG Willie just said, is there any other club online that welcome DP Richard? I see you, sir. Is there any other club that has any announcements? If you have any, please just open your microphone and go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I am Kiwani Ashana. Thank you so much for having me. My head is about to explode with the amount of information that I just gained from the presentation. So there's that. And this is why I keep coming back to your meetings. I'm always learning something. That aside, my club, Kiwani's Club of Charlton Alexandria, will be celebrating our 25th anniversary Tuesday, that is May 21, and for that entire week, we'll be having our anniversary week. There will be a plethora of activities throughout the week, some online, some in person, and I really hope to see the Kiwani's Club of Kingston partaking in that. We'll be sure to send out our flyers and all the persons who are on. Yeah, that's all for now, and I hope to see you guys in person at the convention, because I will be there. I know we can see each other in person, and we can shake some hand and hug up some people. Looking forward to that.
All right, thank you for that announcement. And yes, you will see us. Just look for DLG Willie. You can't miss him, and then you'll see the rest of us around him.
Awesome.
Any other announcements? Okay, it has been a great evening. I don't think I need to say anything except at this time I'm going to invite you all to raise your glasses or bottles and let us raise a toast to Kiwanis International, Jamaica, land we love. It is now, believe it or not, 17 minutes past 9. And so at this point, this meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is now terminated. Thank you all for coming. It was a great evening, great presentation. I'm sure we have all learned a lot, and let's move forward with that knowledge. Thank you. DP Stewart, I think you're now DJ Stewart, eh?
I'm having a little problem with something I'm trying to sort out.
Okay.
You can hear me now, right?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I'm using another device, but I'm trying to sort out something on my PC. So give me a second. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea that this thing was so complex or so intricate.
I was surprised myself. This is one of those presentations that you have to listen to again this week, because it was such that it's one of those presentations that you know that each time you listen to it, you're going to hear something that you didn't hear the first time around or the second time around. But it's on top of everything, it's kind of comforting, because you kind of felt that our water system in Jamaica was in free fall with nobody know what is happening.
Yes.
From this presentation tonight, you realize that there are people who know what they're doing.
Yes, that is so true.
And people who know where we're supposed to be going. You can take up. I personally can take comfort from that.
Yeah, I just one of the systems is just freezing. It's just not responding to my my mouse.
Well, I think what's happening doing a DP Stuart, I think maybe the fate is just saying is 9:19 now, so everybody must just go to them bed.
Yes.
even though I need to leave the office to go home first before I can go to my bed. But
I thought my mouse needed a new battery, so I changed it, but it's still not
is that the mouse?
it's not happening. So
you know, part of what I liked about the presentation a while ago too is that even though he had his slides and what he was more or less following the same chronology as the slide, he was not talking from the slides, he was talking from his head. Right?
Yeah, he's extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah, he's someone.
You know, he's extremely knowledgeable. I was really impressed.
Yeah, man. As I say, I felt good to know that. Well, I know that at least one person know what is happening. Because all along you just got the feeling that we were moving from flood to drought to flood to drought.
And I like the distinction he made between storage and the distribution part.
Yes.
Because when you take water from, say, the Royal Cobra,
yes,
you don't have to store it.
Yes.
You're just pumping it into
exactly.
You're just adding the gallons into the system.
Yeah.
So it's not all the time you're storing it. So when you take it from the rivers,
yes.
So I got a better picture of that.
Yeah.
So
I also another big thing that I got to was because people are always talking about, oh, all you have to do is dam up the gorge, and all you have to do, you understand that is not simply just doing one thing, because you might try solve a problem one place and you flood out somewhere else miles away, and wondering how water reach there.
Yeah. And I'm glad he added some clarity to the whole idea of desilting of the dam.
Yeah.
The additional capacity that you would get, it's just probably not worth it.
And more than that would probably leak out through, because maybe
and that part about the evaporation.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I had no idea. What he says.
That is also part of the problem. You can't do anything about that unless you can get to store it more in the aquifer rather than at the surface. There's so much to understand. Okay, the only way I can shut this down, because I have to stop the recording, is, well, at least I'm not playing any music, so it's not a problem with it, because I'm not infringing anybody's copyright on the recording. But if I can't get this to stop, I'm gonna have to just close the meeting or find a way to just shut it down. Maybe just power it off.
Well, I think BP, I think we can, because as I said, it's now almost 9:30, and I'm pretty sure. Well, I am running now because I'm going to be finishing up some stuff at work and before I head home. So I'm going to be. I was actually going to just sit and listen to music while I work, But I'm pretty sure a lot of other persons are going to be off. So I don't think you need to stress yourself to try and get it work this evening.
Well, I want to shut it down properly, because I've seen where sometimes if you just power it off, the recording doesn't stop.
Okay.
Even though there's nothing being recorded, it's you still have to close the whole thing.
Okay.
So I'm trying to at least the cursor has moved, but I still don't have any control over it.
Okay. Well,
just trying to see how I can get that.
All right. Well, I'm going to take my leave of you.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
I'll just try and figure it out.
Yes. All right. Night, everyone.